The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not cold like winter, but cold in a way that made my skin tight and my chest feel empty. The wooden benches were hard. The walls were tall and pale, like they were made to swallow sound. Every cough, every small movement felt loud. I was sitting at the long table with my lawyer beside me. My hands were folded, then unfolded, then folded again. I kept rubbing my thumb over my ring finger, forgetting that the ring had been gone for months. Across the room sat my husband. He looked calm. Too calm. His back was straight. His face showed no fear. He nodded when his lawyer spoke, as if this was just another meeting, another paper to sign. He did not look at me. Not once. Between us, on a bench that felt too big for her small body, sat my daughter, 9 years old. Her feet did not touch the floor. They swung slowly, back and forth. She was wearing the blue dress I had ironed that morning. I told her it was just a meeting. I told her she did not need to worry. I was wrong. The judge had just finished speaking when my daughter stood up. At first, no one noticed. Children move a lot. Judges see them every day. Lawyers learn to ignore small things that do not matter to the case. But my daughter did not fidget. She stood straight. She cleared her throat the way she did when she wanted to be brave. "Your Honor," she said. Her voice was soft, but the room changed. The judge looked down at her, surprised but not angry. "Yes, my dear?" My heart started beating faster. My daughter took a breath. She held her hands together so tightly that her fingers turned pale. "May I show you something?" she asked. "That Mom doesn't know about?" The words hit me like a slap. Doesn't know about? My head turned so fast it hurt. I stared at her face, searching for clues. She did not look scared. She did not look confused. She looked sure. I felt heat rush to my chest, then up to my ears. My mouth opened, but no sound came out. My lawyer shifted beside me. I felt him lean forward, ready to speak, but he stopped when the judge raised a hand. The judge looked at my daughter for a long moment. Not like she was a child, like she was a person. "What is it you want to show me?" the judge asked gently. My daughter swallowed. "A video," she said. "A video." The word echoed in my head. What video? My thoughts raced. Birthday parties? Silly dances? Old cartoons? None of that made sense. Why would she say I didn't know about it? I laughed once, quietly. Because my brain refused to believe this was real. Then I looked at my husband. His face had changed. It was not much. Most people would not have noticed. But I had lived with him for years. I knew his expressions the way you know the sound of your own breathing. His jaw was tight. His lips were pressed together. His eyes were fixed on my daughter, not in anger, but in warning. Fear crawled up my spine. The judge nodded slowly. "Go on, my dear." My daughter reached into her small bag and pulled out an old phone. Not my phone. Not her father's phone. A phone I had seen before but never questioned. She held it with both hands, like it was something fragile. The courtroom felt smaller. The air felt thick. No one spoke. Even the people in the back stopped whispering. I shook my head slightly, trying to catch my daughter's eye. How she did not look at me. That hurt more than anything else. The judge leaned forward. "Do you know how to use it?" "Yes, Your Honor," she said. Her voice did not shake. I wanted to stand up. I wanted to say something, anything, to stop this. But my legs would not move. My throat felt closed. My lawyer whispered my name, but I could not hear him clearly. It was like I was underwater. The phone was passed to the court clerk. The clerk plugged it into the screen. The screen lit up. A small loading sign appeared. And then, "Wait!" I said suddenly, my voice louder than I meant it to be. Every head turned toward me. I don't understand," I said. My words came out slow. "She's just a child. I don't know what this is, but—" The judge raised a calm hand. "Ma'am," he said kindly. "We will proceed carefully." Carefully. I looked at my daughter again. She was watching the screen now. Her feet had stopped swinging. In that moment, I saw something I had missed before. Not innocence, not fear. Resolve. I remembered all the times I told her, "Adults will handle it." All the times I said, "You don't need to worry." All the times I believed silence meant peace. The screen went dark for a second. Then a video file name appeared. I could not read it from where I sat, but my husband could. I saw his shoulders drop just a little. The judge's face became serious, not shocked, not angry, serious. The courtroom fell into a silence so deep it felt loud. My chest hurt. My ears rang. I pressed my fingers into my palm to remind myself I was awake. This was not how today was supposed to go. Today was supposed to be about papers, about schedules, about who got what days and who paid what money, not this. Not my child standing in front of a room full of strangers, holding something powerful enough to make grown adults stop breathing. The video had not started yet, but I already knew something was wrong. Very wrong. I leaned back in my chair, dizzy, as the screen glowed in front of us all. And for the first time since my husband filed for divorce, I understood one painful truth. There was a part of my daughter's life I had never seen. And whatever she was about to show the court was about to change everything. Before the courtroom, before the judge, before my daughter stood up with that phone in her hands, there was a time when I still believed my family was safe. Not perfect. Just safe. I remember the day my husband told me he wanted a divorce. It was a normal morning. The sun came in through the window. Our daughter was eating cereal at the table, swinging her legs and humming a song she made up. He did not shout. He did not cry. He simply said, "I think we should end this." I laughed at first. I thought it was a joke. When I saw his face, my stomach dropped. He had already decided. There was no long fight. No big reason he could explain. He said we had grown apart. He said it was better this way. He said it calmly, like he was reading something he had practiced many times. Our daughter looked up at us. She stopped humming. I smiled at her and said, "Finish your breakfast." That was my first mistake. After that day, the house felt different. Not loud, not angry, just empty. Like someone had taken the warmth out of the walls. My husband started coming home late. Sometimes he did not come home at all. When I asked questions, he said I was starting fights. When I stayed quiet, he said I was being cold. I felt lost. Our daughter watched everything. She stopped asking for bedtime stories. She started taking her toys into her room and closing the door. I thought she was just growing up. 9-year-olds change, I told myself. I told myself many things. The divorce papers came 2 weeks later. They were neat, organized, already planned. He had a lawyer ready before I even knew what was happening. That hurt more than I wanted to admit. When I told our daughter we would be going to court, I used simple words. I said the judge would help Mommy and Daddy decide things. She nodded. She asked no questions. That should have scared me, but I was too tired to notice. Life became a list of tasks. Wake up, make food, go to work, smile for my child. She'd cry in the shower where no one could hear me. My husband became polite. Almost too polite. He spoke to me like I was a stranger. He spoke to our daughter like nothing had changed. But something had. Sometimes I would wake up at night and hear whispers. I would walk into the hallway and everything would be quiet. I told myself I was imagining things. I trusted my home. One afternoon, I noticed an old phone on the table. Not mine, not his new one. I asked our daughter where it came from. "It's just for games," she said. I believed her. She was always careful with it. She never played loudly. She never asked for help with it. If I walked into the room, she would turn it off quickly. I thought she was hiding games she was not supposed to play. I was wrong. As the court date came closer, my husband became more confident. He talked about schedules and weekends like they were already decided. He said things like, "The judge will understand." Understand what? When I asked him what he meant, he smiled and said, "You worry too much." That smile stayed with me. At night, I would lie awake and think about my daughter's future. Where she would sleep. Who would help her with homework? Who would she run to when she had bad dreams? I promised myself I would protect her. I did not know she was already protecting herself. The day before the hearing, I tried to talk to her. I sat on the edge of her bed and brushed her hair like I used to when she was smaller. "Are you okay?" I asked. She nodded. "Do you have any questions?" I asked. She shook her head. Then she asked me something that felt strange. "Mom," she said, "do judges listen to kids?" I smiled. "Of course. So they care about kids." She thought about that for a long time. The next morning, she picked her blue dress, the same one she wore on her birthday. She brushed her hair neatly and tied it back herself. She looked serious. In the car, my husband did not speak. He kept his eyes on the road. Our daughter sat quietly in the back, holding her bag close to her chest. I thought she was nervous. Now I know she was ready. When we entered the courtroom, everything felt bigger than me. The judge's seat, the flags, the people watching. My husband sat straight, calm, certain. I felt small. The hearing began like my husband said it would. Lawyers talked. Words were used that felt cold and sharp. Custody, evidence, stability. My daughter sat quietly. Too quietly. When the judge asked if there was anything else to add, my husband's lawyer shook his head. Now that was when my daughter stood up, and the life I thought I understood began to fall apart. There are things parents believe without proof. I believed I knew my child. I believed silence meant peace. I believed a quiet room meant safety. I believed that if my daughter was not crying, then nothing was wrong. I was wrong about all of it. Looking back, the signs were there. They were small, easy to miss, hiding inside normal days. After my husband asked for the divorce, my daughter began to change in ways I could not explain. She did not complain. She did not act out. She did not beg us to stay together. She became careful. She watched more than she spoke. She listened when she thought no one noticed. When adults talked, she stayed close, pretending to play while her ears stayed sharp. Sometimes I would find her sitting very still, staring at nothing. When I asked what she was thinking about, she would smile and say, "Nothing." I believed her. She started waking up early, earlier than me. I would hear soft footsteps in the hallway before the sun came up. When I asked why she was awake, she said she couldn't sleep. I told her that was normal. It wasn't. She began asking strange questions. Not childish questions, but careful ones. "Mom," she asked once, "if someone lies, but smiles, is it still lying?" I laughed nervously and said, "Why are you asking that?" She shrugged. "Just wondering." Another time she asked, "If you see something bad, but no one believes you, what should you do?" I told her to always tell a trusted adult. She nodded, but her eyes looked sad. I did not understand why. That old phone became her quiet companion. She never asked for a new one. She never complained when the battery died. She treated it like it was important, not fun. Once, I reached for it by accident while cleaning. She grabbed it quickly and said, "Please don't." Her voice was not angry. It was scared. I apologized and stepped back. That night, I watched her from the doorway as she sat on her bed. The phone was in her hands. She wasn't playing a game. She wasn't laughing. She was watching. Her face was serious. Her lips pressed together. Her shoulders stiff. I told myself she was watching cartoons. Parents tell themselves lies when the truth feels too heavy. There were moments with my husband that now make sense, but at the time felt harmless. He would step outside to take calls and close the door behind him. He would lower his voice when our daughter entered the room. Now sometimes he would stop talking completely. I thought he was trying to protect her from adult problems. She thought he was hiding something. One evening, I asked her to bring her laundry from her room. When I walked in behind her, I noticed the closet door was slightly open. Inside, behind some old boxes, was a small space where someone could sit. She noticed me looking. "I like hiding there," she said quickly. "It's quiet." I smiled and nodded. I did not ask why a child needed a hiding place inside her own home. There were days when my husband would pick her up and take her out without telling me where they were going. He said they needed father-daughter time. I wanted to be fair. I wanted to be calm. I wanted to show the judge I was not difficult. So I let it happen. When they came back, my daughter would be quieter than before. She would go straight to her room and close the door. Once, I asked her if she had fun. She paused before answering. "Yes," she said, but her voice was flat. That was when I noticed something else. She had started writing things down. Not in a diary with feelings and drawings, but short notes. Times. Dates. Simple words that did not explain much. I asked her what she was writing. "Homework," she said. I believed her. Children are very good at hiding things when they think adults won't listen. What I did not know was that she had stopped trusting words. She trusted proof. One afternoon, while I was at work, my husband forgot his old phone on the kitchen counter. The same phone my daughter later claimed was just for games. She picked it up. She did not understand everything she saw. She did not know all the words, so she did not know all the reasons. But she knew one thing. What she saw did not match what she had been told. At first, she thought it was a mistake. She thought maybe adults did strange things that children weren't meant to understand. So she waited. And then she saw it again. And again. She did not tell me. Not because she didn't love me, but because she was afraid. Afraid of breaking our family even more. Afraid of being told she was wrong. Afraid of being sent to her room for listening when she shouldn't. So she watched. She learned how to press record. She learned how to save files. She learned how to hide a phone where no one would look. She learned patience. Every time I told her, "Everything will be okay," she nodded. But she did not believe it. By the time the divorce hearing came, she had already decided something important. Adults lie. Proof does not. That was why she dressed carefully that morning. That was why she carried her bag so close. That was why she did not ask me for comfort in the courtroom. She was not there to be a child. She was there to tell the truth. And while I sat there believing I was protecting her, my daughter was preparing to protect me. I just didn't know it yet. The moment the video began, the courtroom changed. Not loudly, not suddenly, but in a way I could feel in my bones. The screen glowed white at first, then dimmed. A quiet sound came from the speakers, low and uneven, like someone breathing too close to a phone. No music played. No words appeared on the screen to explain anything. Just movement. I leaned forward without meaning to. My heart was pounding so hard, I wondered if people around me could hear it. My hands were shaking, and I pressed them together in my lap to make them stop. The judge did not look away. My lawyer stopped writing. My husband's lawyer shifted in his chair. And my husband finally looked afraid. The video was not clear. It wasn't perfect. It was shaky, like it had been recorded by someone trying very hard not to be seen. The angle was low, too low for an adult, too low for steady hands, too low for anything but a child. I felt dizzy as that thought hit me. This was my daughter's view. The room in the video looked familiar, painfully familiar. It was part of our home, not the parts we showed visitors, not the clean living room or the bright kitchen. It was a quiet place, a private place. My chest tightened. I heard a sound beside me and realized it was me breathing too fast. I tried to slow down. I told myself not to jump to conclusions. I told myself there had to be an explanation. Parents always hope for explanations. No one spoke. Not the judge, not the lawyers, not the people sitting in the back. The video continued. I could feel every second pass like a weight pressing down on my shoulders. My thoughts raced, But my body felt frozen, like if I moved, something worse would happen. Then I heard my daughter's voice. Not speaking, just breathing. Soft, controlled, quiet. She had been trying not to make noise. Tears burned my eyes, but I forced them back. I refused to cry in front of everyone. I refused to let my emotions blur what I was seeing. The judge leaned forward slightly. I noticed his hands. They were folded, still, serious. This was no longer a simple divorce hearing. This was something else. The video paused suddenly. For half a second, I felt relief. Like maybe it was over. Like maybe whatever this was would stop before it went too far. But it didn't stop. The judge raised a hand. "Pause it there," he said calmly. The clerk did as told. The screen froze. The judge turned his eyes to my daughter. "Is this your video?" he asked gently. "Yes, Your Honor," she said. Her voice was steady. "How old were you when this was recorded?" he asked. She thought for a moment. 8, she said. 8. I closed my eyes for a second. 8 years old, and she had been carrying this. The judge nodded slowly. "Did anyone help you record this?" "No, sir," she said. "I did it myself." My husband's lawyer stood up quickly. "Your Honor, with respect, this is highly inappropriate. A child recording—" The judge raised his hand again, firmer this time. "Sit down," he said. The lawyer sat. My husband stared straight ahead. His face was pale now. His calm mask was gone, replaced with something tight and desperate. I wanted to turn to him. I wanted to demand answers. I wanted to scream his name, but I couldn't move. The judge looked at my daughter again. "Why did you record this?" She hesitated. The room waited. "Because no one was listening," she said quietly. That was when the tears finally fell. I covered my mouth, but it was too late. A sound escaped me, broken and small. I had never felt pain like that before. Not sharp pain, not loud pain. This was a slow, crushing pain. The judge's expression softened. "Who didn't listen, my dear?" She glanced at me for the first time. Our eyes met. I saw fear there, and love, and something else that hurt even more: responsibility. "I tried to tell," she said. "But everyone said not to worry." My heart shattered. The judge nodded once. "You may continue the video." The clerk pressed play. The video moved forward again. The same room. The same quiet tension. Time passed on the screen. Enough time to show this was not a single moment. This was a pattern. I felt sick. My lawyer leaned toward me, whispering my name, but I couldn't respond. I couldn't tear my eyes away. The judge watched closely. He did not rush it. He did not interrupt again. When the video ended, the screen went black. No one spoke. Not for a long moment. The judge turned slowly toward my husband. "Do you recognize what is shown here?" he asked. My husband opened his mouth. No sound came out. His lawyer stood again, hands shaking slightly now. "Your Honor, this footage is out of context. We object to—" The judge's voice cut through the room like steel. "You will not speak over me." The lawyer sat down. My husband swallowed hard. "Yes," he said quietly. "I recognize it." The words felt heavy, final. The judge nodded. "Thank you for your honesty." Honesty. I almost laughed. The judge turned back to my daughter. "Did your mother know about this?" She shook her head. "No, sir." "Why not?" he asked. She looked down at her shoes. "I didn't want to make things worse." That broke me. I leaned forward, reaching for her, but stopped myself. I didn't want to interrupt. I didn't want to take her voice away. The judge removed his glasses and rubbed his face slowly. When he put them back on, his eyes were different, sharper, more focused. "This court takes matters involving children very seriously," he said. Everyone listened. He asked questions next. Careful questions, simple ones. He made sure my daughter understood every word before answering. He did not rush her. He did not scare her. For the first time since this began, I felt a small sense of safety. The judge then turned to me. "Ma'am," he said, "were you aware of any of this?" I shook my head. Tears streamed freely now. "No," I whispered. "I swear I didn't." "I believe you," he said. Those words mattered more than I expected. He turned to my husband again. "This court will be taking a recess," he said, "and when we return, this case will proceed very differently than it was scheduled to." The gavel struck softly. The sound echoed through the room. People began to move, to whisper, to stand. But I stayed seated, staring at my daughter. She looked so small again. When she turned to me, saw her eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry, Mom," she whispered. I pulled her into my arms then, not caring who watched. "No," I said, holding her tight. "I'm sorry." And as I held her, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. When the judge called everyone back into the courtroom, the room felt different. It was still the same place, the same wooden benches, the same high walls, the same quiet rules, but something invisible had changed. The air no longer felt cold. It felt heavy, like the truth itself had weight and was pressing down on every person inside. I was holding my daughter's hand. She held mine back. That alone told me everything. My husband sat across from us, no longer straight-backed or confident. His shoulders were curved now, like he was trying to make himself smaller. He did not look at me. He did not look at our daughter. The judge took his seat and looked around the room slowly, making sure everyone was ready to listen. "This court," he began, "has reviewed the material presented." His voice was calm but firm, the kind of voice that made people stop thinking about excuses. "This case is no longer only about divorce," he continued. "It is about responsibility. It is about honesty. And most importantly, it is about the safety and well-being of a child." My daughter squeezed my hand tighter. I felt tears rise again, but this time they were not only tears of pain. There was something else mixed in: relief. The judge spoke directly to my husband. "You have placed this child in a position no child should ever be in. You underestimated her, and you misunderstood the meaning of silence." My husband nodded once. He did not argue. He did not defend himself. For the first time, he looked small. The judge then turned to me. "You trusted," he said gently. "And trust, when broken, does not make someone weak. It makes them human." I closed my eyes and let that sink in. I had blamed myself for weeks, for not seeing, for not knowing, for not asking the right questions. Hearing those words felt like someone lifting a weight from my chest. The judge continued, explaining his decision carefully, using words even my daughter could understand. He talked about custody, about supervision, about steps that would be taken to make sure she was safe. He spoke about consequences, real ones, no shouting, no drama, just truth. When he finished, he looked down at my daughter again. "Would you like to say anything?" he asked. The room held its breath. She stood slowly, still holding my hand. Her legs shook just a little this time. She was brave, but she was still a child. "Yes, Your Honor," she said. She looked at her father then. Not with anger, not with fear, with honesty. "I didn't do this to hurt anyone," she said. "I just wanted the truth to be heard." That was all. She sat back down. The judge nodded once, deeply moved. "And it was," he said, "because of you." The gavel came down again, louder this time. The hearing was over. People began to stand, to talk quietly, to leave. Lawyers gathered papers. Chairs scraped softly against the floor. But I stayed where I was for a moment, my arms wrapped around my daughter. "I should have listened better," I whispered into her hair. She shook her head. "You love me," she said simply. "That's listening too." I cried then, Not quietly, not carefully. I cried like a mother who finally understood how strong her child truly was. Outside the courtroom, my husband approached slowly. He looked tired, older than I remembered. I never thought, he began. I held up my hand. Stop, I said. He stopped. This is not about what you thought, I said. It's about what you did. He nodded. I know. He looked at our daughter. I'm sorry, he said. She did not answer, and that, I realized, was his consequence. Not yelling, not anger. Silence. In the weeks that followed, our life changed. Not overnight. Not magically. Healing is not a straight line, but it began. My daughter started talking more, laughing more. She slept better. She stopped hiding her phone. We talked, really talked, about everything, about fear, about truth, about how even adults can be wrong. I learned something important through all of this. Children are not small adults. They are something stronger. They see clearly when grown-ups are blinded by comfort and excuses. They feel deeply when adults pretend not to feel at all. And sometimes, when the world refuses to listen, it is a child who stands up and says, "Here is the truth." My daughter did that. And because of her, the silence was finally broken. After the judge left the courtroom, the room slowly emptied, but I did not move. My daughter's small hand was still tightly wrapped around mine, her tiny fingers curled with a strength I had never seen before. For a moment, it felt like the world outside that wooden room. Outside the polished benches, the tall walls, and the staring strangers did not exist. There was only us. There was only the weight of what had just happened. Only the truth that had finally been spoken. I held her a little tighter, and she leaned into me. "Mom," she whispered softly, her voice small but certain. "Everything is okay now, right?" I smiled, even though my chest still felt tight, and my heart was hammering with both relief and exhaustion. "Yes, my love," I said, pressing a gentle kiss to her hair. "Everything will be okay." But deep down, I knew that it would never be the same again. Not for any of us. Nothing could erase the months of fear, confusion, and silent observation. I knew that. And yet, somehow, in that moment, I felt hope. Hope that the future would be brighter, steadier, safer. Hope that we had survived what no child should ever have had to face, and that we were coming out stronger because of it. We walked out of the courtroom slowly. The sunlight outside felt sharp and warm against my skin, a stark contrast to the cold, echoing halls inside. My daughter squinted against it, then smiled up at me. "It's really bright out here," she said, her voice lighter now. I nodded and held her hand tighter, letting the warmth of the day remind me that the world outside was still real, still alive, still ours to rebuild. Her small steps were cautious, but she walked with a confidence I had not seen before. That same confidence that had led her to stand before a judge and speak truths I had not even known existed. And as I followed her, I realized how much I had underestimated her. How much I had assumed her innocence meant weakness. How wrong I had been. Children like her, children like mine, are often more powerful than adults give them credit for. The days following the hearing were strange, quiet, and full of adjustments. My husband did not come back to the house. He moved into a small apartment across town, and though he tried to reach out initially, his calls were few, his words measured. He never admitted everything he had done, but he did not need to. The evidence my daughter had presented spoke louder than any explanation he could offer. There were no arguments, no shouting, just the quiet acknowledgement that our life together was over and that the choices he had made could no longer be undone. At first, I worried about how my daughter would respond to his absence. I worried she would blame herself, or worse, feel responsible for a world she had no control over. But she surprised me, as she always had. She was resilient in a way that stunned me. She spoke openly about her feelings, about the fear she had carried in silence for months, and about the small moments she had observed that had made her realize she needed to act. Every time she spoke, I felt a mixture of awe and heartbreak. Awe because she had the clarity to see truth when adults had blinded themselves with lies, and heartbreak because I wished I had been able to protect her from this entirely. School was another adjustment. Teachers noticed a change in her demeanor, a quiet seriousness that had always been there but was now sharper, more focused. I explained simply that she had been through a difficult time, that some families have challenges, and that she had handled herself with courage. They nodded respectfully, sensing there was more beneath her calm face, but they did not press. My daughter thrived quietly, Sue excelling in her studies, speaking up for herself when needed, and quietly helping friends who faced struggles of their own. It was clear to me that her experience had given her a perspective on life that few children ever develop. Home, too, began to change. Our small apartment was no longer tense with unspoken words. The spaces that had felt heavy with uncertainty were now places of comfort. We started new routines, small but significant. Breakfast together in the morning, walks after school, and evenings filled with stories, laughter, and the simple act of being present with one another. We even brought back the small traditions my husband had neglected: baking together, reading stories before bed, quiet arts and crafts in the living room. And for the first time in months, I felt the tension ease. The house, once echoing with unspoken fears, felt like home again. I also realized that healing was not linear. Some days, memories of the courtroom and the months of quiet observation returned like shadows. Sometimes my daughter would flinch when a loud voice broke the quiet, or she would pause when hearing arguments on television. But on these days, we faced the moments together. I held her hand, she held mine, and we reminded each other that the past was not gone, but it did not have to control the future. We talked openly about fear, truth, responsibility, and the power of speaking up when silence is too heavy to bear. As for my husband, the distance was a relief. Not because I hated him, but because his presence had reminded us too much of danger and deception. Now, separated, he became a figure of the past, a reminder of what we had survived. Occasionally, he tried to send messages through our lawyers, asking about custody arrangements, holidays, or school events. Each time, I carefully considered what would be safe for my daughter, consulting with the judge's recommendations and our lawyers. Slowly, I established boundaries that protected her while allowing him a minimal, structured role in her life. It was not perfect, it was not simple, but it was safe. Months passed, seasons changed. Our small apartment transformed into a place of warmth and laughter. The kitchen, once silent and tense, now rang with the sound of our daughter singing as she helped me cook. Our evenings, once spent in quiet vigilance, now included family movie nights, whispered secrets, and soft giggles over stories shared in the dark. Each day brought small victories. Each night, I went to bed exhausted but grateful. One afternoon, my daughter and I sat together on the couch, flipping through old photo albums. She paused on a picture of the three of us, smiling on a trip to the park before everything fell apart. She traced the edges of our faces with her small fingers. "Mom," she said softly, "I'm glad I told the truth." I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. "So am I, sweetheart. So am I." She smiled, and for a moment, I felt the weight of the past lift just a little. It was not gone. It would never be gone entirely, but it no longer controlled us. The silence that had been heavy with fear and secrets had become strength. Our voices, once quiet or unheard, were now powerful tools for protection, for honesty, and for love. In the months that followed, I also learned to forgive. Not him, not fully, but to forgive myself. To forgive myself for not seeing the signs sooner. To forgive myself for trusting adults when my daughter's instincts were already correct. And most importantly, to forgive myself for believing that I could control everything, when the truth was that some things had to be faced together. With love, patience, and courage, even the smallest among us can illuminate the darkness. The day came when my daughter was asked to share her experience at school in a special class about bravery, responsibility, and the power of speaking up. She told her story simply, honestly, without bitterness. The other children listened, teachers listened, and I watched from the back, tears streaming silently down my face, as my little girl stood tall, proud, and wise beyond her years. She had transformed her fear into courage, her silence into action, and her truth into protection, not only for herself, but for everyone who might face similar challenges. Sometimes at night, when I tuck her into bed and sit beside her quietly, she whispers things I cannot always respond to. Thoughts about fairness, about honesty, about how some adults cannot be trusted with the truth. I listen, I nod, and I remind her always, truth matters, and courage matters more. She is learning the lessons of life far earlier than most children, but she is thriving. She is strong. She is brave. And she is mine. Looking back, I understand now that the courtroom was never just about divorce. It was never about money, or schedules, or who got weekends. It was about discovery, about awakening, about realizing that even a small child can carry immense truth, and that adults, even parents, are not infallible. It was about the power of listening when it matters most, and it was about understanding that sometimes the most profound lessons come from the quietest voices in the room. Our lives are still simple. We still face challenges. There are moments when memories of the past whisper through our home like shadows. But now, we meet those moments together, with honesty, with love, and with courage. My daughter walks with confidence. I walk with clarity. And together, we walk into a future built on trust, protection, and the knowledge that the truth, spoken at the right time, can change everything. And so, our story ends not with drama, not with shouting, not with anger, but with quiet strength, with a mother who finally listens, a child who finally speaks, and a family that, despite everything, has found its way back to each other, stronger, braver, and more united than ever before. We learned that the world is not always fair. Adults will make mistakes, lies will be told, secrets will hide in corners. But courage, honesty, and love, these cannot be hidden. These are the lights that guide us. These are the truths that cannot be silenced. And in the end, the courtroom, the gavel, the videos, the lawyers, they all faded into memory. What remained was my daughter, my heart, and the bond that had been tested and survived. What remained was hope. What remained was strength. And most importantly, what remained was the understanding that a small voice, when brave enough to speak, can echo louder than anything else in the world. Because sometimes the quietest voice carries the heaviest truth. And that truth saved us. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more interesting revenge stories.